Hello Freedom Seekers, Jeremy Chambers, Independence Acres Homestead here. Today we look forward to sharing with you how we build our pretty inexpensive and mostly waste-free quail feeder. So the goal today is not to show you a process that requires thousands of dollars worth of tools or a lot of setup, but just a quick and easy way to make this quail feeder. Everything we're going to be doing here today is going to be with hand tools that you can get at a local hardware store and with parts that you can get at a local hardware store or even in your own backyard. All right, let's head into the garage and I'll show you how we do this. Here are the basic tools and supplies that you're going to need for the project. Over here we've got some 3-inch interior diameter PVC, pliers, wire cutters, caps. We've got some wire that will help us with the no-dig portion of this quail feeder, S-hooks, inch and a quarter screws, a glue gun, and a drill with a 1/4-inch drill bit. And then this over here is a little piece that I made myself. This is just a little jig that I use to split the PVC in half and also use it to cut down the PVC to length. So we're going to be cutting down this piece of PVC. Our needs is 22 inches in length. We're going to need a 22-inch long feeder for our 24-inch cages. You can adjust the length of this tube based upon what you need for your project. So what I've got here is my PVC cutting jig, just made out of some scrap lumber that we had, some 2x4, some 1x4, and some 1/4-inch cardboard shims here just on the surface. So what this jig does is two things. Number one, I can get it down like this, and it gives me something to hold the PVC and to keep it from rolling while I'm cutting it down to length. Like I said before, I'm going to cut this down to 22 inches in length. Already got it marked. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Alright, PVC cuts pretty easy. It's one of the reasons why it's used in so many DIY projects. Okay, so now that I've got it cut to length, we're going to split it. Let me get this screwed down and then I'll get it cut. There we go. So, what this will allow me to do is just use this as a guide, and we'll be able to cut this PVC right in half without too many problems. Just as a reminder, anytime you're working with sharp tools, PVC, metal, wire, anything like that, just wear a pair of gloves. Keeps you from having any extra injuries on the homestead. All right. That's about as easy as it gets to cut a piece of PVC pipe in half. As you can see, got some sharp edges there. We're just going to hit this with a file real quick on all these edges for my safety, but also for the safety of the quail who will be eating out of this. Alright, there we go. Cut in half. So this is going to give me about 1.5 inch tray here in order to feed the quail. Now what's going to make this a low waste feeder is this 1 inch by 1 inch wire. This is just wire we had left over from our rabbit cage build, and it's just going to get cut down to 3 inches wide because that's how wide the pipe is. We'll drill a hole end, middle, and end, and we'll zip tie the wire on so that it allows the quail to stick their head all the way down to the bottom of the feeder, but without flicking it out and around with their beaks. So the two we already have up, we've noticed hardly any waste. Our old quail feeder design, we've definitely had some waste. So the next step here is going to be cutting the plastic end cap in half. Now the most simple way is to take a pair of snips of wire cutters, and we're just going to cut the edges. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and then once we have that cut, we can just do a little bend in half. I mean, if you want it a little more exact, you can use a utility knife or some larger wire snips. And then once again, I'm just going to take my handy dandy rasp here, just clean up the edge. I need one cap for every feeder, and this is a pretty economical project. So a 5-foot piece of the 3-inch PVC costs about $5.99, $6 at a local big box store. These are 65 cents a piece. The hooks come in at about $2.50, which is enough to make 3 feeders. And then honestly, the only other cost that you might not have hanging around your homestead is the 1-inch by 1-inch welded wire here that we're going to use as the feed block. So once your hot glue has fully come up to temperature, the simplest thing here is to just take your half cap, and we're just going to put some glue right into this edge. And it doesn't have to be a lot. This doesn't have to hold water. It's not structural. All this is doing is keeping the feed from spilling out of the edges, right? So hot glue in that corner, and we're just going to slide it right in to the edge of the pipe here. Make sure that it's in there nice and tight. And unless your quail are really picky, it doesn't have to be super pretty. Alright, that's one side. Now, one benefit to using the hot glue here, it's just that you can get done a little faster. You can use super glue if you'd prefer. I don't think Elmer's glue, but if you had like rubber cement or something of that nature that would bond the plastic together, that'd be fine. The only reason I use the hot glue here is because it's quick and I have too much to do instead of just sitting around waiting for glue to dry. Alright. Alright, there is the other side in. Once again, it's not perfect, but it'll do. And that's the basis for that. So, let me grab my 1/4-inch drill bit here. And for this step, the most important thing is to make sure you're not drilling down too far. The reason why I'm using these S hooks is it'll allow me to clip the feeder to the edge of the quail cages that we have, and also to take it off easily for cleaning. So setting the hook right up against the edge. I don't know if you can see that. They're setting the hook right up against the edge so that you can get an idea about how far down to drill. And I'm marking the bottom of the hole, and then I will drill it right above that one. Okay, so the S hook will go through just like that. All right, so we're through the hole. I'm going to take a pair of pliers and I'm going to crimp down the hook so that it is tight on the PVC, because we don't want to lose the hook anytime we take this thing off of the cage. So we are going to grab it with a pair of pliers just like that, line it up and squeeze. Now the PVC will actually dimple in a little bit with the S hook, and that's fine. All that just ensures that you're getting a nice nice tight hook in there. Alright, and that's one side. Get the other side done here, and then we'll drill the holes for the 1-inch by 1-inch wire. Alright, there we go. Both hooks are in. Now, we're going to do the same process for drilling the holes for the 1x1 wire. We're just going to set the wire across the top, and we're going to drill the hole on each end, over here, so a total of 6 holes in the middle, back, and front, and then on the other side, end here, and right over here. Use the same quarter inch drill bit for these holes. So I used the same 1/4 inch hole to drill the holes for all of the zip ties. Same 1/4 inch drill bit that I used for the S hook. So grab 6 couple zip ties here, and we'll get this thing put on. Now when I'm putting the zip ties on the S hook side, I want to make sure that I don't leave the large part of the zip tie extending out past this side, because that's going to keep me from being able to hook the S hooks onto the cages. So when I'm zip tying this, I'm going to rotate the actual latch part into the inside of the tray, as you can see there. Now once again, if you don't have zip ties, you can use just something simple like a bread bag tie, a simple wire tie, or tie closure that you would get with trash bags. These are not something that are structural in this situation, so even if you have just like some old pieces of electrical wire, you can use that and twist that in. The Quail are not going to be super aggressive on these zip ties, so it's not a big concern about making sure that that these are structural and can carry any weight. So no sense going out and buying zip ties. If you don't have them, use what you have sitting around the homestead. All right, and that, my friends, one step left. Now, this is something I ran into on the last set that I made. Let me grab a piece of wire and I'll show you what the problem is. This is the only problem with this design. Let's flatten. So pretend this is the cage face for the Quail cage. We're going to take our PVC tray, hook it on, and it actually is going to fall away from the Quail, because the Quail will be inside the cage and stick their head through the cage to eat into these trays. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that, all the food's going to fall out. So as a kind of quick and dirty solution, what I do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to find some twigs in the yard, about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch in diameter. Okay, so once again, in this situation, hot glue is your friend. This does not need to be structural. It's just going to be holding the PVC off of the cage a little bit. So I'm going to need 2 3-inch pieces maybe. And I'll go ahead and use those same diagonal cutters. And we'll cut this in half. There you go. Cut it in half. We will apply a line of hot glue just to the inside of the clips here, and about 3/4, half to 3/4 of an inch down off that top edge. Apply some hot glue, and then apply the stick. All right. Let that dry for a little bit, and flatten up this wire some more. All right, so cage face where the Quail are eating. We're going to go ahead and hook this on. And there we go. So it's going to sit a little more level. If you find that it's not sitting quite level enough for you, you can bend the hooks a little bit, so we can adjust that hook angle in order to bring it in just a little closer. All right. So we're going to just do some quick adjustments on these hooks. We're just going to close them up a little bit. Not too much, because we still want to have it fairly easy to unhook. And try it again. And there we go. We've got a decently level feeder. I'll do some more adjustments once it actually gets out onto the Quail cage. But really happy with how these turn out. Like I said, on the 2 cages that have had this design of feeder, we've had very little food loss and food waste. So it's just been a pretty good thing. Last step, you want to make sure you just wash it before you start feeding your quail out of it, because it could have some grease and manufacturing gook on it. So just give it a quick wash with some soap and water before you put it on your quail cage. Well, thank you so much for joining us today as we went over our build process for a fairly inexpensive, easy to build, no waste quail feeder. If you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any updates on our channel. We look forward to sharing our next video with you soon, which is going to be dealing with the pet food container waters that we made for our quail and how we plan to keep them from freezing during the winter. We really appreciate you guys. And as always, God bless.